Chapter 2. Quickening Memory. Shion held her knees to her chest and stared at the wall. This world was so quiet, dead silent. Hollow Bastion, this place was called. She was back in that small room in the huge castle, once Riku's and now hers. She wasn't sure how many days had gone by. Riku came in to check on her every couple of days. She had stopped dreaming quite so much, but she remembered the one she had that day, on Destiny Islands. The three of them were together at the beach, watching the sunset. I want to be with you too. That was her only wish. How could she be more like them? Enough to stay with them. Her origins were so different. Maybe it was impossible. What should I do? She peered at her gloved hands and then removed the gloves. Her fingers were pale white. Come to think of it, she hadn't seen herself in a while. At the organization, she had looked in the mirror every day. What would I look like to myself today? Standing in the cave in Agrabah, Roxas sighed. His mission had brought him here today, so after he was done, he had wandered as far down as he could go in search of Shion. But he found nothing. There was no sign of her in any of the worlds he'd been to, nor of that organization imposter she was after. Only Heartless that swiftly fell to his keyblade. He had started sleeping better since they decided to look for her. That perpetual muzzy feeling had left him, as if it had never been, and the worlds were all in color again. He wondered what that meant. He'd been stumbling through days that were no more than numbers to be counted. Maybe it was losing Shion that had made everything seem so murky. Or so he'd thought. But she was still gone, and yet he felt better. What had changed? The only difference was that he and Axel had decided to look out for Shion. He didn't know why that was enough to change his outlook so much. Maybe his memories were so indistinct because he'd done nothing but follow orders for days on end. He went to a different world each day but did basically the same things, so there wasn't much to recall. Still, he felt it was more than that. And he didn't even know why Shion had left the organization. Had she failed another mission? Or was it something with Saïx? What could have happened to her that Roxas didn't know? True, she had been acting strange, but not strange enough to make him worry she would leave. What happened? Why, Shion? And he was stuck with all these questions. It was so frustrating. Roxas clutched the keyblade so hard his knuckles turned white. Anxiety came over him. He began to wonder, would he ever see Shion again? Tomorrow, he would search another world. They gave Axel the same mission again. Hunt down the imposter Riku. He'd been on that for a while now. He kept expecting them to tack on the objective of searching for Shion, but fortunately, or perhaps unfortunately, Saïx gave him no such order. Axel looked out over Neverland's ocean and leaned back, stretching. He couldn't sense any trace of Riku or Shion here either. What did the organization intend to do about Shion? Were they going to let her wander freely until she led them to the Keyblade Master? Or did they actually know where she was? But if they did, they wouldn't have Axel looking for Riku. He hadn't breathed a word to Saïx that Shion was probably with Riku, but he couldn't have said why he was keeping his suspicions to himself. But that had allowed him to suggest looking for her with Roxas. It was a choice, a resolution toward a certain path, and it was also, what? Friendship? Axel made a wry grimace at the word. His doubts still remained, and he agonized over what would be the best course of action. Would he ever find that answer? Roxas and Axel sat side by side, watching the sunset in their usual spot on Twilight Town's clock tower. It's no use, Roxas sighed. We're never gonna find her. They'd been to worlds after worlds, searching for Shion, with not even the faintest clue to show for it. Isn't there somewhere you haven't looked yet? Asked Axel. I've been everywhere I know how to get to. Roxas stared down at the toes of his boots. If there was some other place I haven't tried, it would have to be somewhere I've never seen before. But somewhere Shion might know. Then maybe. Roxas said it as soon as it crossed his mind. The only place I haven't looked is Castle Oblivion. He stared at Axel until their gazes met. That had to be it. He could recall Shion saying something about Castle Oblivion. Why had he forgotten until just now? Roxas kept thinking aloud. Shion was asking about it, remember? Axel's eyebrows twitched downward. And the day before she disappeared, you said she was put on an important mission. Roxas went on. When you go on those important missions, it's to Castle Oblivion, right? So maybe Shion is... Look, the place has been cleared out, man. Axel interrupted, trying to derail this train of thought. There's nothing there. But still, Roxas couldn't let the idea go. You know, that's where she comes from. Castle Oblivion. What? Really? Roxas spluttered in response. That's probably why she was asking about it, Axel added. I had no idea. Roxas slumped. Shion had never told him that. And Axel hadn't mentioned it before either. Hey, neither did I, said Axel. I only found out about it a little while ago myself. Castle Oblivion, Roxas murmured distantly. When had Shion discovered her origins there? She had no memory of her past like him, and their memories of the time right before becoming nobodies were fuzzy too. So maybe Shion wanted to know more about that strange, uncertain time for herself. But they had never discussed it. Maybe Shion was struggling with something on her own. Friends were supposed to help each other out when they were in trouble, but Roxas couldn't do anything for her. He hung his head in the sunset's glow. She dreamed for the first time in a while. She was in Castle Oblivion, but whose dream was it? Or maybe it wasn't a dream at all, Shion thought as she blinked awake. She still didn't know what she would find, but she felt like she had to go. All the secrets were there. Axel flopped over in his bed and stared at the ceiling. There was still some time before he had to head to the gray area. He had lied to Roxas yesterday, although it wasn't the first time. A single white lie had led to another, and even when he told the truth, he was trapped in the web of falsehoods. Had it really been necessary to tell Roxas about Shion's origins in Castle Oblivion? He was regretting it now. But he didn't want to lie to Roxas. That feeling had been real too, almost like he had a heart. He was still lying. Well, lying by omission. He couldn't tell Roxas the whole truth about Shion now. Actually, he was pretty sure he should never tell him. Axel clung to the faint hope that keeping the truth to himself would allow Roxas and Shion to keep existing. Allow them to exist. Ha! Nobodies weren't even supposed to exist in the first place. It was right there in the name. Nobody. Non-existent. So why did he keep thinking about it? Shion, Castle Oblivion, and Riku. That castle was a very particular place. If he went there with Roxas, they might discover something. Axel clambered out of bed. He got the feeling nothing would change if he didn't make some kind of move. Just like one lie led to another and another. If he was going to bring Roxas to Castle Oblivion, a reason would help, like a fierce enemy appearing there. An enemy like the Organization Imposter, like Riku. It was a while since Roxas had spent a restless night, but Castle Oblivion had given him one. He made his way to the gray area just a bit behind schedule. Hopefully, the mission would be quick today. The more time he got to look for Shion, the better. When he stepped into the lobby, Axel and Sykes were deep in discussion. He stopped short when he overheard Sykes. The imposter has been sighted again. The imposter? Roxas started. You mean... He's prowling about Castle Oblivion as we speak. I'll go. The words were out in an instant. If he met the Organization Imposter, he could inquire about Shion, but really, he just wanted to go to Castle Oblivion. Shion had mentioned going there, so maybe he would find out something. Not by yourself, he won't. Sykes eyed him with cold disdain. This target is extremely dangerous. Roxas was not deterred. But before he could insist, Axel spoke up. Then how about I tag along? Sykes turned to Axel, somewhat reproachfully. I know Castle Oblivion better than anyone else in this outfit, Axel pointed out with a smirk. Very well, said Sykes. Go then, and teach this fraud the price for wearing our coat. Axel and Roxas exchanged a glance and a nod. Maybe this would bring them a little closer to Shion. Riku walked through the corridors of darkness with Shion. It was her idea. She said she wanted to return to Castle Oblivion. The castle stood on another level of a liminal state, among all the realms. He was doing everything in his power to see her hopes fulfilled. That, he believed, would show him the path to what he must do. The bizarre silhouette of the castle rose out of the darkness. He felt like its shape had changed since he'd first come here, even since he'd met Shion here the other day. Or was he just imagining things? Shion stared up at it as if in a trance. Are you all right? For an instant, her form had seemed to shimmer. I'm fine. Her hood was pulled up deep over her face, but he couldn't see her expression.
What is this place anyway? Riku thought. Why is it here?
So, this is Castle Oblivion. Roxas looked up at the strange castle. He'd never been here before. Another new world. But was it really a world at all? It seemed more like an extension of the liminal darkness of the corridors. This was where Shion was born, and where so many fellow members of the organization had met their ends. What could possibly be here? Roxas wondered.
I told you before, there's a research facility, said Axel.
To research what?
I don't know, research is research. Nobodies and heartless, I guess. Stuff like that.
What did they have you do here, Axel? The third question had him at a loss. Axel scratched his head.
Just recon, more or less.
That didn't satisfy Roxas.
What do you mean, more or less? Classified stuff, Axel replied with a shrug.
Ugh, fine. Roxas knew he wouldn't get a real answer once Axel busted out the classified label.
Can we go in? Sure. We're here on a mission, aren't we?
Roxas pushed the door open. The interior didn't look much different from the organization's castle where they lived. He stepped inside, and a weird sensation came over him, like everything was twisting somehow.
That's Axel right behind me, isn't it? And you're the noisy, quacking one. And you're the easygoing one who talks slow. Wait, huh? What is this? Roxas?
He heard Axel worriedly calling his name as pain jolted into him.
Ow, my head!
The wrenching agony didn't stop at his head. His chest hurt too.
What's happening to me? Easy, man. Come on, let's retreat for now.
He knew it was Axel holding him up by the arm, and yet,
there's nobody here. I don't know for sure, but something just told me he'd be here. One look at this castle, and I just knew. Our very best friends. They're here. My friend, Shion. No, we have to find Shion.
So he said, but it took all his strength to speak, and he collapsed to his knees. It hurt. Everything hurt. He could barely breathe.
In this place, to find is to lose, and to lose is to find. What's happening? I don't understand. Whose voice is that? Is it Marluxia? Why do I hear Marluxia? And the others? Who are you?
Roxas! Axel was practically carrying him. He looked up at Axel's anxious face, and then it warped in his vision.
All these pictures rushing into my head. What's happening?
We're leaving, now, said Axel.
No, wait. There's something. I can almost, but I can't.
He felt so faint.
Giving up already? I thought you were stronger than that. Who is that? Who's talking to me? Giving up? I'm not giving up. No way! Riku!
He lurched violently awake. His head no longer hurt, at least, but he still had no idea what had happened.
Whoa, you okay there?
Axel peered at him, clearly concerned.
Did I pass out? What happened to me?
Roxas asked.
You collapsed right inside the castle doors. Don't you remember? I remember going inside the castle.
He got to his feet,
but that's it.
They were still in Castle Oblivion. Anything that took place once he went through the doors was a blank, though. He felt a little bit woozy, but not too bad. Axel still looked worried.
Hey, you should take a breather. I'm fine. I want to see what's here.
Roxas began to head for the door at the other end of the hall, but then he saw them. 2 people in black cloaks, watching him and Axel. One he didn't know, but the other was definitely.
Shion?
Roxas ran closer. He just knew it was her. Shion took 1 step toward him, but then backed away again. Behind her was a swirling dark portal.
Shion, wait!
She vanished into the corridors. As Roxas dashed after her, the other cloaked figure blocked his path.
Get out of the way!
He summoned his Keyblade, but the figure stepped through the portal after Shion, and Roxas followed.
Roxas, wait up!
Axel ran after him in turn. Now what? She hadn't expected to find Roxas in Castle Oblivion. Had she dreamed about it last night because it was on his mind too? She never suspected that the connection between them could run that deep. Shion was running, but she had nowhere to go, not really, and she ended up in a familiar place, Twilight Town. She ran through the cobbled streets and paused to catch her breath at a dead end in the tunnels. You want to go back?
What?
The question startled her, but it was Riku. Her voice dropped to an uncertain murmur. I don't know. I can't figure it out.
Then go to Hollow Bastion. I'll distract them.
But
if you don't know what you want, it's not the right time yet.
Just not the right time. Shion nodded and opened another portal. Thanks, Riku. Once again, she disappeared into the corridors. He pursued the other cloaked figure.
Why are you running away, Shion? What's wrong?
When Roxas followed them out of the corridors, he arrived in Twilight Town. He knew he wasn't chasing Shion, and yet, for some reason, he had to. Everything felt jumbled in his mind.
Hey, Roxas, settle down a second,
said Axel. How was he supposed to do that? His chest heaved.
They're gone. We've lost them.
Axel put a hand on his shoulder. Roxas looked back at him.
But Shion.
No way that was Shion. Axel sounded so dismissive, although he was breathing hard too, having to keep up with Roxas in a determined sprint.
No, the other one was. The one who escaped before,
Roxas protested. He was sure of it.
At least we know she's safe, said Axel. She'll come home when she's ready.
Something about that reply bothered him, like Axel was deliberately being obtuse.
But won't they turn her into a dusk?
He prodded. Axel let out a deep sigh.
Not necessarily.
Well, then what? Say something, Roxas thought, his frustration rising.
Who was that guy she was with? Why is she cooperating with him? He knows about Shion.
His hands balled into fists, and he bit his lip as he stared down at the paving stones.